Welcome to Bramah Gyaan, a channel where we explore the essence and history of Hindu philosophy. In this video we will look at some key teachings found in Bhagwad Geeta. The Bhagwad Geeta is one of the most revered and influential scriptures of Hinduism. It is a part of the epic Mahabharata and is believed to have been written around 2,500 years ago. The Bhagwad Geeta is a dialogue between Lord Krishna, an incarnation of the supreme god Vishnu, and Arjuna, a warrior prince, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was a warrior and one of the 5 Pandava brothers who were fighting for their rightful share of the kingdom against their cousins, the Kauravas. The battle between the two sides was about to begin when Arjuna suddenly became overwhelmed with emotion and despair. As Arjuna surveyed the battlefield, he saw many of his relatives and friends among the enemy army. He began to question the morality of fighting and killing his own kinsmen, and felt overcome with grief and confusion. Arjuna was not just a warrior, but also a deeply spiritual person who valued righteousness and justice above all else. He felt torn between his duty as a warrior and his moral obligations as a human being. He was deeply troubled by the thought of killing his own relatives, and the consequences that would follow. Arjuna's worries were not limited to the battle itself. He was concerned about the impact that the war would have on society, and the suffering and destruction that it would bring. He also worried about his own spiritual well-being, and the implications of engaging in such a violent and destructive act. It was in this state of confusion and despair that Arjuna turned to his charioteer, Lord Krishna, for guidance. He expressed his doubts and fears to Lord Krishna, and asked for his advice on how to proceed. It was at this moment that Lord Krishna began to impart spiritual wisdom to Arjuna, and the dialogue that followed became the Bhagwad Geeta. Lord Krishna helped Arjuna to understand the nature of the self, the ultimate reality, and the path to liberation. Through his teachings, Arjuna was able to overcome his doubts and fears, and perform his duty as a warrior with detachment and without fear. The story of the Bhagwad Geeta is not just a historical account of a conversation between two individuals on a battlefield. Rather, it is a timeless and universal message that provides guidance and inspiration to people of all cultures and backgrounds. The Bhagwad Geeta is a guide to living a fulfilling and meaningful life, and attaining the ultimate goal of human existence. In this video let us look at few of the many teachings of the Bhagwad Geeta. Jnana Yoga, the nature of the self. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches us that we are not our body or mind, but rather, eternal spiritual beings. The true nature of the self is to be aware, conscious, and blissful. The self is immortal and indestructible and is not affected by birth or death. Lord Krishna explains to Arjuna in chapter 2, verse 12, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be." The Bhagwad Geeta emphasizes that the self is distinct from the body and mind, which are temporary and subject to change. The body is like a dress that the self wears, and the mind is like a mirror that reflects the impressions of the external world. The self is the witness of the body and mind, and it is unaffected by their activities. This realization of self and universe helps to overcome the ego and make right decisions in life, which is for the greater good. Karma Yoga. The Bhagwad Geeta emphasizes the importance of performing one's duty without attachment to the results. This is known as Karma Yoga, and it leads to the purification of the mind and ultimately, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Lord Krishna explains in chapter 2, verse 47, "You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action." Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to an action. Karma Yoga involves performing one's duty to their best of ability and judgment without being attached to the outcomes or rewards. This detachment leads to freedom from the bondage of karma and the purification of the mind. Bhagwat Geeta also gives us insight into laws of karma and their types. Remember to watch our video on understanding karma, the spiritual currency. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches that every action has a consequence, and one should be mindful of the quality of one's actions. The teachings advise us to live in the present and perform actions with the right intention, without attachment to the results. Gyana Yoga. The Bhagwad Geeta also teaches the path of knowledge or Gyana Yoga. This involves discrimination between the eternal and temporary, and ultimately realizing the oneness of the individual self with the Supreme Self. Lord Krishna explains in chapter 13, verse 35, that which is called knowledge is the realization of the Supreme Self, and that which is called ignorance is the perception of the body as the self. Gyana Yoga involves the study of the scriptures, contemplation, and meditation. It requires discrimination between the eternal and temporary, and the recognition that the individual self is not separate from the Supreme Self. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches that the ultimate reality is Brahman, the infinite and eternal consciousness, and that the individual self is a part of Brahman. The goal of Gyana Yoga is to realize this truth and attain liberation. This helps us in recognizing the unity of all beings and the oneness of the ultimate reality. This aids in cultivating positive qualities such as love, compassion, and generosity is essential for spiritual progress and self-improvement. Bhakti Yoga. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches the path of devotion or Bhakti Yoga, which involves surrendering oneself to God and developing a loving relationship with Him. Lord Krishna explains in chapter 12, verse 7, "Those who fix their minds on me and engage in my devotion with steadfast faith, I consider them to be the most perfect." Bhakti Yoga involves cultivating a sense of love and devotion towards God, and surrendering oneself completely to Him. This can be done through various practices such as chanting the names of God, worshipping idols or images, or practicing selfless service or seva. The Bhagwad Geeta emphasizes that the path of devotion is accessible to everyone, regardless of their social status, gender, or background. The three gunas. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches about the three gunas or qualities of nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas. These gunas are present in all beings and determine their temperament and behavior. Sattva is the quality of purity, harmony, and balance, rajas is the quality of activity, passion, and desire, and tamas is the quality of inertia, darkness, and ignorance. Lord Krishna explains in chapter 14, verse 5, "From sattva arises knowledge, from rajas arises activity, and from tamas arises ignorance." The Bhagwad Geeta teaches that the goal of spiritual practice is to transcend the three gunas and attain a state of pure consciousness. The path to liberation. The Bhagwad Geeta teaches that the ultimate goal of human life is to attain liberation or moksha, which is freedom from the cycle of birth and death. This can be achieved by following any of the three paths of Karma Yoga, Gyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. The Bhagwad Geeta emphasizes that the path to liberation is unique to each individual and depends on their temperament and level of spiritual evolution. Lord Krishna explains in chapter 18, verse 46, "By performing one's natural occupation, one worships the Creator from whom all living entities have come into being, and by whom the whole universe is pervaded. By such performance of work, a person easily attains perfection." The Bhagwad Geeta teaches that by performing one's duty with a sense of detachment from pain, pleasure and results, cultivating knowledge of the eternal reality, and developing a loving relationship with God, one can attain liberation and eternal bliss. Gita teaches us the importance of living in harmony with nature, and lead a simple and meaningful life. The Bhagwad Geeta teachings are relevant and applicable to people of all cultures and backgrounds across timelines. The Bhagwad Geeta emphasizes the importance of performing one's duty with detachment, cultivating knowledge of the eternal reality, and developing a loving relationship with God. By following any of the three paths of Karma Yoga, Gyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, one can attain liberation and eternal bliss. Namaste. Thank you for watching our video. Please like, comment and do subscribe our channel to support our effort to bring you informative content on Hindu philosophy. Thank you.